My name is Elaine Carter, and until just 14 minutes ago, I was the Vice President of Strategic Alliances at Verdant Corps, a wellness firm I helped establish from the ground up. Elaine, we really appreciate your years of effort. However, the board believes it is time to take a new route. Your position is being terminated, effective immediately. The words echoed around the glass conference room like a silent explosion. My pulse stayed steady, but my chest felt tight. Marissa Lang sat across from me, a 40-year-old Ivy League MBA who was polished, poised, and exactly 18 years younger than me. She was the newly appointed CEO, hired 6 months earlier with full board approval. Her mission? Bring fresh energy to a corporation that relies on regularity. I stood without hesitation. Thank you, Marissa. I wish you and the company continued success. There were no tears, no begging, simply a solid handshake. Marissa sighed, obviously astonished. She had expected opposition, or at least emotion. Her handshake was quick and weak. HR will assist you with your transition. We're providing 6 months of severance pay, which exceeds our typical policy, she said, as if I should be glad for the golden crumbs. I had dedicated more than 2 decades of my life to this company. 22 years ago, Verdant Corps was a small, eco-friendly wellness company based in an Austin loft. I was present when we pitched our first national store. I negotiated the partnerships that propelled us from local farmers markets to shelves in over 4,000 retailers across the country. When competitors outspent us, I devised ways to outmaneuver them. During the pandemic, when the supply chain failed, I was the one who kept things running. All that history was now contained in a single cardboard box. As I packed my office, the corner one with the skyline view, achieved via years of negotiation and late nights, I took a moment to glance at the plaques on the wall. Top strategic partner, lifetime achievement in wellness commerce, most influential woman in nutraceuticals, tokens of a legacy that no longer seemed relevant. Elaine, this isn't right, muttered Jordan, my 11-year helper, standing in the doorway, trying to hide her tears. Everyone is shocked. Nobody saw this coming. I gave her a gentle smile. This is business, Jordan, not personal. But we both knew it was not true. This was a coup disguised as development. Since Marissa's arrival, senior leadership had begun to disappear. First gently, then swiftly. Our CFO, a talented 61-year-old who had led the company through 3 mergers, was restructured. Our 56-year-old head of product innovation has retired early. I was merely the last box to be checked off. But I possessed a card that no one in Verdant Corps knew about. Years ago, I made a deliberate personal investment. Using a combination of funds and a small inheritance, I obtained a significant silent position in Fultra, which handled 80% of Verdant's nationwide distribution, cold chain logistics, customized packaging, and the last-mile delivery. All of it. Verdant relied on Fultra, and they had no idea I was on the board. It had always been a backup plan, an exit ramp just in case. As is customary, I awakened before daylight the morning after my termination. But this time, I had nowhere to go. I made coffee and sat on my porch, watching the sky change hues over the hills of central Texas. At 60, I was too youngful to fade away and too experienced to start over the traditional way. I knew the statistics. Executives over 50 were twice as likely to be unemployed for a year or more. The employment that returned was frequently smaller, lower paying, and significantly less fulfilling. Then came the text. Harold Lindwood, CEO of Fultra. I heard the news. Let us chat. Dinner? 7 p.m. La Stella. Harold wasn't merely the CEO of Fultra. He was also one of the few people who are aware of my shareholding in the company, which was held discreetly through a separate investment entity. We had always kept a clear distinction between my official and private roles, but the timing of his message was not lost on me. Something was about to change, and this time I wouldn't just be a player, I'd hold the board. La Stella was one of those quiet, wood-paneled restaurants situated away from the hustle and bustle of downtown Austin, complete with dark lighting and soft jazz. When I arrived, Harold Linwood was already sitting with a glass of Barolo in front of him and an incomprehensible look. 22 years, Elaine, he replied as he rose to meet me. And that's how they say goodbye? I smiled softly as I took my seat. No gold watch, either. He chuckled, but there was steel underneath it. She called me, you know, he explained once the waiter vanished. Marissa, this morning. I raised an eyebrow. Let me guess, she wants to renegotiate the contract. Wants is too polite a word, Harold replied dryly. She wants revised terms, lower interest rates, shorter timelines, less oversight. This was all portrayed as a necessary, strategic reset. Of course, I saw it clearly. Marissa was doing what many new CEOs do, pursuing short-term victories to show the board. What she didn't comprehend was that Fultra's deal was sealed, or that the individual who originally negotiated it retained voting power in the boardroom. What are you thinking? I asked, maintaining a neutral tone. I'm thinking, Harold added softly, that Verdant Core is about to discover how difficult life can be without us. His gaze narrowed. But that's not why I asked you here. I waited. What if you didn't need them anymore? He said. It took a moment to comprehend what he meant. You're talking about starting something new. He nodded. With you at the helm. Verdant became too massive to move quickly. Too many layers. You saw it coming, which is why you invested in Fultra. You have the experience, network, and instincts. And now, freedom. A gap occurred between us, punctuated only by the clink of glasses on surrounding tables. I leaned in. What if I asked gently, established a brand on what Verdant forgot? A wellness company that prioritizes trust, customization, clean, modern supply chain. The supply chain is streamlined, with no excessive intermediaries or inflated egos involved. Harold's countenance changed from curiosity to conviction. I'm listening. That night, over grilled sea bass and aged wine, we sketched up the concept for Ardina Living, a wellness brand founded on clarity rather than bitterness. It would provide individualized vitamins and lifestyle items based on actual research, sustainability, and real stories. No gimmicks, no influencer fluff. Just honesty, which Verdant had lost. By the conclusion of dinner, Harold had agreed to support our launch utilizing Fultra's infrastructure. It would not be widely known, at least at first, but I would have distribution set up before we even had a name on the door. The next morning, I called my old product innovation leader, Julia Kwan, a talented chemist who had been quietly demoted to a supporting post during the restructure. How are they treating you over there? I asked. She laughed dryly. I've been reassigned to a long-term development stream with no deadline, no budget, and no team. I got right to the point. What if I said I have a blank slate and a real opportunity? There was a pause. I'm in, she said. Over the next 10 days, I made a series of quiet phone calls, not to poach or sabotage, but to invite folks I valued into something greater. Some people said no. Most people said yes. Ardina Living was becoming reality. Meanwhile, back at Verdant, everything began to unravel. Marissa's aggressive attempts to modify Fultra's contract were unsuccessful. Their products started coming late. Retail partners began asking questions. Inside sources informed me that the board had arranged an emergency meeting. I was not surprised. After all, they'd kicked out the person who had built the bridge they were now dangling from. But I wasn't finished yet. This wasn't vengeance. It was a reclaiming. 2 weeks into what I jokingly referred to as my liberation, Ardena Living's foundation was hardening faster than I could have imagined. We leased a small but sunny office space just outside of downtown Austin. It featured open windows, crisp lines, and none of the frigid formality of my previous corner office. We didn't need prestige, we just needed possibilities, and we had it in abundance. I gathered a team of 10, not through LinkedIn searches or recruiters, but through private chats with folks who had previously helped construct Verdant Core. Many people remained in the company, but their trust in its direction had weakened. They had no intention of leaving the company. They were looking for something genuine in which to put their faith anew. Our product innovation lead, Julia, was present. Omar, who specializes in regulatory compliance, successfully avoided quarantining a $2 million package at customs. Layla, who specialized in customer experience, transformed disgruntled buyers into loyal patrons through her empathy. And Thomas, the previous VP of logistics, who had been pushed away shortly before retiring, was now more enthusiastic than I'd ever seen him. These weren't just colleagues, they were professionals in architecture. Ardena Living was founded on a single promise: uncompromising customization. We were not simply going to sell vitamins. We planned to provide wellness solutions that were tailored to individual needs, designed in a transparent manner, and supplied consistently. No nonsense here, no shortcuts. Julia had already begun developing a trial product line of modular supplements aimed at improving sleep, focus, and immunity. Each would be adjustable through a fast online examination based on real research, not wellness jargon. While we worked silently, the storm in Verdant Core grew louder. My network informed me that their retail partners were apprehensive. Fultra had informed some of them, in accordance with legal responsibilities, that contract negotiations had stagnated. We anticipated delays. Stockouts are possible. And in this sector, shelf space is not reserved for anyone. Retailers began seeking out other suppliers. Despite the fact that Ardena's brand identity had not yet been decided, I received 3 inquiries. One of those queries came from Hearth & Hill, a nationwide chain that represented more than 12% of Verdant's entire shelf presence. "You're launching something new, right?" their purchaser had asked me bluntly. "Because we're looking." It was tempting to smile, but I kept my voice neutral. "We'll be ready when you are." Chaos had broken out inside Verdant. Marissa's cost-cutting plan had devolved into a series of frantic pivots. Verdant rushed through packaging initiatives. Internal morale plummeted. One acquaintance informed me that HR had begun to receive a surge of silent resignations. Then, one morning, I got a text from Jordan, my former assistant. "Jordan, the board has implemented a 72-hour strategy lock-in. Rumors are spreading. Marissa seemed anxious. People are asking about you." I did not reply. I did not respond right away. The next evening, I met with Harold at Fultra's offices. He looked exhausted yet determined. "She's still trying to strong-arm us," he remarked bluntly. "But the board is starting to smell blood. They contacted me through back channels yesterday. Monica Winters is your former chair." I kept my expression neutral. "And?" "They want to meet, privately." "About what?" Harold gave me a glance. "About saving the relationship." We both recognized the irony. The same folks who had approved my exit now wanted to know if I could help them mend what they had broken. "Are you going to the meeting?" he inquired. "I might," I responded, "but not as a favor." The meeting was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in a quiet, private lounge of an upmarket hotel just north of Austin. There was no public notice, no press. There were just 3 board members at Verdant Core, including myself. They seemed different now, not arrogant, but nervous. Monica Winters, the chairwoman, welcomed me with a smile that barely reached her eyes. She gave me a firmer handshake than when she had dismissed me, but her posture revealed strain. "We appreciate you agreeing to meet," she said. "We know this might be awkward." "Not at all," I answered quietly, taking my seat. "It's just business, right?" Her expression flickered with recognition. She remembered those precise words from the day they released me. Another board member, Kevin, chimed in. "We'll be up front. Our supply chain is eroding. Fultra has rejected all of Marissa's proposed terms. They have also notified numerous big shops about potential delivery issues. As a result, some of those accounts are now looking for alternatives." "They already are," I replied simply. A moment of silence ensued. "You know, Harold," Monica added, "he will no longer take Marissa's calls, but he will still speak to you." "I'm sure he would, but I'm not here as a messenger." "What are you here as?" Kevin inquired, his voice filled with displeasure. I let the moment breathe. "I'm here as the founder of a new company that's already secured national distribution, is weeks away from launch, and has the attention of some of your largest retail partners." They blinked. "You're building a competitor," Monica remarked softly. "I'm building something Verdant forgot how to be: agile, honest, focused." "Elaine, your actions could ruin us." "I didn't create this situation," I responded, my voice steady. "You delegated management of your most important relationship to someone who did not recognize its significance. I made investments to preserve my future, just as your board should have done." My tone was not one of gloating, just clarification. "What do you want?" Monica asked. "I already have what I need. But Harold is open to conversation with someone who understands the long game." Following the meeting, I called Harold. I did not put pressure on him. I made no commitments. I merely stated that the door was open if Verdant wished to return to the table, this time with humility. That week, Ardenna Living signed its first retail partnerships. Hearth & Hill committed to carrying our whole launch collection in 300 outlets. 2 more regional chains followed. The retail press picked up on the subject. Industry veteran launches disruptive wellness brand amid Verdant core turmoil. Ardenna Living, the new face of personalized wellness? Our social media networks received a surge in attention. We kept our messaging simple: real well-being. Our social media networks are specifically designed to cater to your needs. No shortcuts. No ego. It made sense. Marissa, on the other hand, doubled down. In a desperate attempt to maintain control, Marissa disclosed that Verdant Core would launch its own distribution business, a revelation that shocked investors. Is it feasible to build logistical infrastructure from the ground up in this climate? The market reacted quickly. Shares fell 15% in 2 days. Then came an email from Benjamin Tuller, Verdant's former CEO and founder. He'd been retired for years but still had a large ownership position and had stayed strangely silent throughout. Subject: lunch. It's just us, no agendas. I met him in a secluded country club on the outskirts of Hill Country. Still crisp, still blunt. I built that company with my hands, and now I don't recognize it. I said nothing. They're asking me to return as interim CEO, clean the house, stabilize the company, but I'm not certain I should. You should if you still care, I told him. He stared at me. And if I did, what would it take to rebuild the relationship with Fultra? You already know the answer. It starts with a change at the top.
The headlines wrote themselves 2 weeks after I met with Benjamin Tuller. Verdant Core ousts CEO amid distribution meltdown. Founder Benjamin Tuller returns as interim chief to stabilize company. Marissa Lang's stint ended exactly 3 months after mine. Her fresh perspectives had become an internal punchline. The distribution strategy was abandoned, investor confidence plummeted, and the board, previously her staunch supporter, no longer responded to her calls. Benjamin did not waste his time. He reinstated two of Verdant's most senior department leaders. He discarded several of Marissa's unsuccessful proposals. He discreetly reached out to Faltra. Harold, being the pro, agreed to meet. The terms had changed. Faltra had leverage now. However, they managed to reach a settlement. Verdant would keep distribution for legacy products, albeit under harsher conditions. Faltra had Ardina living to protect now, as Harold made clear. Benjamin congratulated me shortly after, via video call. You didn't burn the bridge. You just built a better one next to it. However, my attention had already shifted. The Natural Wellness Expo in Los Angeles officially introduced Ardina Living. Our booth was not the biggest, but it was the busiest. Curious shoppers, health journalists, and even a few former Verdant employees stopped by, pulled in by word of mouth and our unashamed commitment to cleanliness. What is our tagline? Wellness reimagined for you. I stood on stage for our product premiere, staring out at the audience, not strangers, but peers who had witnessed the industry's rise, fall, move, and adapt. I spoke clearly. We feel that wellness is more than just buzz. It's not about trends, it is a personal matter. And our products reflect that truth. Applause followed, although it was not the loudest noise in the room. What struck me most deeply was the feeling, the excitement of being back on my terms. I am no longer at the whim of the boardroom. I'm not fighting for recognition. It's in the works. Following the session, I noticed Benjamin across the exhibition hall, standing near Verdant's smaller, quieter booth. He drew my attention and raised his hand in recognition, not out of obligation, but out of respect. I acknowledged the gesture. We didn't have to speak. The narrative was straightforward. The industry was large enough for both of us, it also had room for evolution. That night, I returned to the Ardina office, which was already humming with our 20% core staff. They had labored on weekends in the face of uncertainty and under invisible pressure. But they believed in the vision, which had now become a reality. As I walked around the halls, I noticed something familiar. Whiteboards full of notes, open laptops, scribbled formulations, and cardboard boxes stacked at the entrance ready to ship. It reminded me of Verdant in its early years. But this time, we take lessons from the past. Jordan sent me a message that evening. She joined a micro-supplement startup in Seattle. They're calling her a visionary again. My response was, she always did have a good resume. Jordan says, still, you have won. However, it did not feel like we were winning. It seemed like a readjustment. This wasn't about vengeance. It was about demonstrating that experience, loyalty, and vision are still relevant. That age is not a disadvantage, rather it is an advantage. Beginning afresh does not mean beginning small. Often the most innovative ideas emerge during challenging times. Those who have seen what works and what doesn't can sometimes shape the future. Sometimes validation can have a greater impact than praise.